Welcome to another edition of Game Changers for Government Contractors. I am your host, Michael LeJeune. And if you don't know me, you probably should. You should go look me up on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all those other good places to see all the stuff we're doing out there. I've got a brand new book out on the market called I'm New to Government Contracting. Where do I start? And you should definitely pick that up. Before we hop in and talk about our topic today, we're going to be talking about leadership around proposals and things like that. I'm going to have Melissa come on and tell us a little bit about herself and what she does. So, Melissa, welcome. Thank you for coming on to do the podcast. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I have been in proposals since 2008. Been very heavily involved in the Association of Proposal Management Professionals since about 2012. I've been living in the Colorado Springs area, so very immersed in government contracting since 2012 as well. I've worked for small and large businesses alike, both as a full-time employee, but also as a contractor, and also running my own consulting firm with a team of several contractors under my purview. Most recently, now the Vice President of Proposals for Strategic Growth Partners under John Cook, which has just been such a rewarding experience as we continue to grow and provide value to our clients and continue to grow our team of professionals.
That's awesome. Yeah, and John's a great guy. I love working with your company. I just did a podcast with John about the Tribal Summit that we have going on, so people should go check that out as well and learn more about what you guys do. 2008. That's a long time to be doing proposals. You must really love it. So
Yeah, I mean, it takes a certain type. Some people call us masochists, but it's what I'm good at, and so yeah, I definitely love it.
What drew you into the proposal world? Because, just like me with government contracting, I didn't wake up, as a kid and go, you know what, I want to be a government contracting guy at some point. So like, what drew you into the proposal side of things?
Yeah, so I actually went to school for a chemistry degree.
Nice.
My chemistry was my passion, but I've also always really loved writing. And so, in taking several technical writing classes for that degree, I ended up kind of deciding to go the technical writing route and not pigeonhole myself into one area of science.
Nice.
And my dean came to me one day and said, "Hey, this company is looking for a tech writer, and I thought you'd be great for them. Go talk to them." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, it's basically a sales position. It's proposals. And I said, "No, thank you. I want to do true technical writing." And he was like, "Well, just go talk to them and see what it's all about." So I did. And they put an RFP, a request for a proposal, and a proposal document in front of me. And I went, "Wow, this is really cool. It's like a puzzle." And it really is. It's challenging every single day. There are always new and exciting things to learn. And I've just loved it ever since. I think every single person in proposals says they fell into this or fell into government contracting.
Yeah, that's an interesting route. I mean, I'm the same way. I said no to everything in my path to get to where I am today. Literally, like, I don't want to do that. I don't have any interest in it. Next thing you know, this is kind of what I do full time, and just one after another kind of led down this path. And it's probably kind of how a lot of people get to where they're at. So, so doing proposals for a really long time, you've probably seen a lot of bad processes, a lot of bad leadership, a lot of good things. You came on today to talk a little bit about the inside out leadership of proposals teams. So talk to me a little bit about, probably first, like, what happens when a proposal is led really well?
Yeah. There is this synergy and such a team feeling when a proposal is led well. And I think that a lot of proposal professionals have never experienced that. And being a advocate for mental health and for team leadership, in addition to my passion for proposals, has really led me down this path of, helping guide people on how to be a better leader in their role as a proposal manager. I think historically, proposals has sort of been seen as more an admin function, but it's not. It's really a leadership function. You're really working with a dynamic team of people from various different backgrounds, technical, sales, leadership backgrounds, all coming together on one project, and you're having to work with all of those dynamic personalities. It is a leadership role.
Do you see, there's some fundamentals under every type of leadership, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. There's these fundamentals. Do you see in this role in the proposal world, are there some specific traits of a leader or specific skill sets that make a leader better in the proposal world than others?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it rings true in every leadership role, but specifically in proposals, it does take a certain type to do what we do. And so you are working with generally more introverted people, either because they're very focused on the technical background that they've got, or people just generally in the proposal field are a little bit more introverted, and it's it's kind of going down a path of that whole command and control leadership style and management style just doesn't work for what we do. Servant leadership really seems to be the most effective way to guide a team from start to finish on these projects.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important for folks. So can you talk about like because you like in your write up for this talked about this human centered leadership proposal style. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, human centered leadership really comes from a place of knowing yourself and understanding your best traits and your flaws, and um, having accountability for those in yourself, understanding how they play into your leadership style, and really being true to yourself. And innately, what that does is it creates an energy within your team where they feel safe to be themselves too. And understanding that you're not working with seven people that are cookie cutter images of each other. These are seven different human beings with different family dynamics at home and different personalities, different learning styles. And by understanding yourself better, it opens you up to understanding your team better and being a better leader for them.
Yeah. How do you navigate that when you have such different personality profiles? You may have a few introverts, a few extroverts, but then you mentioned learning styles, and I've always been of going through and learning that stuff. And you see people who are they're people, they're the drivers, they're the people that are focused on stability. They have all kind of different things, whether it's they're visuals or auditory. There's a whole mix of personality types. How does a leader navigate that stuff?
Yeah. Um, First, you have to create a foundation of a open forum for people to tell you what they need, and that comes from getting to know your team before you start, and that can be done during the kickoff call. The second part of that is also setting very clear expectations for
Mm-hmm.
inputs from each of the authors on a proposal effort and when those are due. I think that oftentimes proposal people come into a project with a big inflated ego, and that's just
Mm,
not going to work. And
yeah.
so when you come across as a human yourself, it allows your team to also be their own selves and tell you what they need. So at that kickoff call, if you create an environment where it's open communication back and forth between you and your team, but also make yourself available for them to communicate at any time that they need to. You're the captain of the ship here, and so you need to be available to people whenever they're working, and not expecting them to work at all hours of the night or over weekends and holidays.
Mm,
I think that really does set a foundation for that human centered leadership on the project. And as somebody who works in a consultant capacity where I'm consistently working with new teams on a daily basis, different projects with different clients who have different subcontractors, I'm always working with new teams. And so I don't really ever have the chance to settle into one team. So I
mm,
always have to be on my toes about being, available for that communication, and that information about what people need from me. But setting those expectations early, looping people in early on where they're expected to come in the process, at what point, really does set the foundation for that human centered leadership.
yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Do you have any recommendations on like steps that people can take to apply to their proposal techniques that will improve the overall process as well as the proposal?
Yeah. I recently did a webinar regarding future focused proposals. And I think that taking your approach to proposals from a very reactive state to a more proactive state is going to be key to creating that more relaxed environment to proposal efforts. I think that there's the age old tale of, somebody running down the tarmac to get the proposal onto the plane before it takes off,
Yeah.
and that's sort of an exaggerated view of how the culture is in proposals historically. It doesn't have to be that stressful. It can be peaceful. It can be a fun process. It can be enjoyable within the team. And really, what it takes to get there is being more proactive, not only in your capture and your strategy and getting ahead of these proposal efforts themselves, knowing your customer and having a good capture plan in place that tells the proposal team what information they need to create those good win themes and put together a compliant, compelling proposal. But also in your proposal process itself, having a good content management system, setting up a good past performance database that has, all of those really great metrics on the project, and setting yourself up for a good, successful proposal document is really key to being proactive.
Hmm. Do you have any recommendations for folks that are listening and they're just now forming their proposal shop, if you will, and they're thinking, well, I'm kind of a proposal shop of one, and how can I better lead myself through this? Because I think if you're just listening and you're just by yourself, that may be difficult, because I can see the scenario being most of the time where you are trying to run it down the tarmac and get it on the plane, or get it uploaded at 2 minutes prior to when it's due, and that kind of stuff. So for those folks that are new and this is their first go round with this, where they've been in a week or a year, but they are by themselves, like how do you what would you recommend I do to lead myself better through this?
I would say, it is daunting to sort of consider that, but in a situation where you're your own, you're wearing many hats, right? You are the proposal manager, you're the writer, you're the coordinator, you're the editor, you're the desktop publisher. You're doing it soup to nuts, start to finish. And in a lot of cases, you're not getting a lot of input from your leadership or from a solution standpoint from your organization. I would say be very clear with your leadership about what you need. If you don't tell your boss what you need in order to put together a good proposal effort, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And if your leadership is pushing back and saying, no, you can do this all on your own, but you can't, this is one of those points in our career where it's really important to know your walkaway point in your personal relationships, in your job as well. And that's something that I learned way back when I was in college. It's one of my biggest takeaways from one of the best professors that I had was know your walkaway point, and understand when an environment is not conducive to doing your job well. But first, give it a chance, communicate what you need. And if what you need is another resource, say so. If what you need is better processes, that could be the case. It can be done in a one person shop, but you need the tools and processes to support doing your job well. And you have to communicate those to your leadership. If
Yeah.
they're, saying, do the whole thing, I'm going to throw it over the fence to you, and I'm not going to give you any input on it, that's a problem. You need to have those reviews. The people at the top of your organization should be reading these proposals before they go out the door. And so those types of things are serious issues to consider, but communicate what you need.
Yeah, that's really good. You talked about tools a few times, so I know this is slightly off topic, but not quite. Do you have some favorite proposal tools that you could share with us?
Yeah, so I am actually in the process of shopping through some of the newest AI tools out there to identify the best one for our team right now. But AI is such a buzzword out there in proposals right now. And so I think that's probably something we should discuss. Um, you know, from my perspective, AI is not a scary thing. I'm excited to start to implement those in the processes that we're using within strategic growth partners for our clients. But I would say if you're using any tool, any new tool, and applying that to your proposals, start small. Start with one or two features to begin with, no matter if it's AI, or one of these content management systems that are out there. Start with smaller features to begin with and then expand out, because all of these tools are only as good as what we put into them. And so if you're trying to apply a huge new system and rework all of your processes, you're probably not going to end up using it to its full potential. So start with bite-sized chunks. When it comes to AI, I would suggest starting with content management, outline building, one voice editing, these types of things that are sort of smaller bite-sized chunks before you jump into creating AI proposals, if you will. I think that there's a fear out there regarding AI and whether this is going to take over our jobs, and it's not. It's just like moving from the typewriter to the desktop publisher. We use the tool to make our jobs more effective and make us more efficient at what we do. We adapt, we overcome, and we move on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100% agree. I'm glad you mentioned that about AI because I do think there are too many people that are afraid of it. And for me, like it's just made me faster at what I do. That's the
Yes.
big thing. There are things that I would take hours to do that I can ask it to do and it'll do it in a couple of minutes at best, right? Like I mean
Yeah.
it's not going to take very long to do. So you mentioned a content management system. You mentioned AI tools on the writing side. Are there any other tools that you would recommend for people in this role?
Yeah, find yourself a good project management tool. I like the classic Kanban type tools,
Hmm.
where you've got the tiles that move tasks through different project phases, and you can assign different task assignments throughout the tool. And I think those are really great, especially in proposal management with all of the proposals we've got going on for different clients and such. That just helps us to understand where we're at in the process, and where those
Hmm.
pinch points might be that we need to jump in and maybe smooth things over. So project management tools are one of my favorites.
Nice. As we start to kind of like wrap up here, are there any like final pointers, final words of wisdom that you have on like creating this environment for? Uh, I guess it's really the leadership really creates an environment for the users, for the people doing the work. I'm just curious if you have any final words of wisdom for leaders on this side of things.
Yeah. Um, I would say that, we need to switch from a culture of thinking that proposals is an admin function, and start looking at it like a true leadership function. This is a strategic revenue driving function within our companies. And it really does take a certain level of leadership skills in order to do this job. And also that proposals don't have to be scary. They don't have to be
Yeah.
uncomfortable and unpleasant. They can be pleasant, and it just takes understanding the right processes and leadership style to support a team that enjoys what they do.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And I think I like what you said there about proposals are not scary. I mean, it's just part of the job. That's really all it is. It's just part of the job. And I think for leaders that are new in this, I think taking a look at the thoughts you've shared today are a really good start for folks. So I appreciate all the comments you had and kind of this direction of human centered leadership around proposals. I do think it is such a, I think the way you put it was an admin function for a lot of folks where they really are just knocking this stuff out and not really the people that are doing the work and how to motivate them and drive them in the right direction to get a great proposal. Because I think when you have a people that or a set of people that are thriving around something, they tend to do a better job, and you're going to get a better proposal, and hopefully that turns into more wins, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So good.
Agreed. Yep.
So good stuff. So thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll have you on again soon to talk about something else. So
Yeah. Thanks for having me. We'll see you soon.